All right, in this video, I'm going to teach you the 3 stages to sustainable financial success as a coach. Not just temporary success, but sustainable success. And if you're missing any of these 3 phases, your business can't be viable. And if it's not viable, it can't be financially successful long term.
We're going to talk about 3 steps to success, but not just success. I think one of the reasons that a lot of people are struggling in the coaching industry specifically is because they're chasing just success, and specifically they're chasing sexy success instead of sustainable success. And sustainable success is different than sexy success. The sexy success that we're drawn to, which actually appeals to a certain region of our brain and gives us this dopamine hit that many of you may have heard about with social media nowadays. We're drawn to this sexy shortcut success because we want what we want now. And the brain wants to get everywhere it wants to get and protect itself from all the things that it doesn't want to experience without the expense. That wasn't the word I was looking for, but that's actually a perfect word. Without the expenses of energy, without the expenses of time, and without the expenses of money. So because the brain wants to conserve energy and conserve expenses, we're actually biologically wired to search for sexy, to search for the quick fix. And then it becomes a trap because, especially in an industry like coaching, there's no regulation, so people will sell you sexy. Think about this. If you wanted to be a doctor and you didn't want to go through all the, the boring stuff like the med school and passing exams and all that kind of stuff. You just wanted to get somebody on your operating table. And there was no regulation in the medical industry. There would be people that sell you how to get your first operating patient next week, right? But thankfully, people's lives are on the line and that regulation is in the medical industry. Well, I think people's lives are on the line here too. In fact, I know they are. But there's no regulation here. And the reason that's really critical to understand is because we have to understand the industry. We have to understand the arena. We have to understand the things that are on the shelf for us to buy, why they're on the shelf, and what we need to do in order to make sure that we succeed, because the industry is not built for you individually to succeed. Institutions are not built that way. So we have to know ourselves in order to create the sustainable success and find the recipes that are aligned for us. So what I want to teach you today are these 3 phases toward success. So I'm going to go top down in the reverse order because this is the way we're looking at these things generally, and this is the way that we're searching for them, and this is the way that we're buying them and consuming them, and almost everybody fails. So let me get on a 15-second soapbox here. If almost everybody is failing, here's what you shouldn't do. What almost everybody does. Okay. So the first V in top down here is valued. That means being valued by somebody else financially. So what this is sales. This is making sales. I don't know this to be true. I haven't actually looked at the numbers or seen a study on it, but I would say 70% of the programs out there are how to get clients. It's sales. And again, I'm going to probably say this maybe every single class. None of the stuff is wrong. It's just misaligned for most of us. So this step is important. It just shouldn't be the first step. And without the bottom 2 steps, it's meaningless and actually dangerous. So again, we're looking for alignment. What's right for you, not necessarily what's right in general. Now, your seekers are determining your value. What I mean by that is, if they don't buy your products, then to them, you're not valuable from a financial standpoint because they're not paying you money. This needs to be, if you're interested in building a sustainable business, this is like the no bullshit teaching, right? I don't want to feed into the sexy cycle that keeps us trapped. I want to tell you what I've learned is the reality about building a business, and then you get to decide if you're going to do it or not. But I won't tell you that it's a way that it's not. I won't tell you that the path is easy and it's downhill and all you got to do is, kick your skateboard one time and you just roll and there's never any friction and never any, turmoil. That's not reality. So the reality, in my experience, is that we put our emotions where it doesn't belong and we don't put our emotions where they do belong. This should not be an emotional process. It should not be an emotional process to determine your prices. Oh, I never really thought about this. One of the most common tenets out there almost when it comes to pricing is to charge what you're worth. I get it. And what you're worth is an emotional conversation for most people. They'll tell you what you're worth because they'll pay what they value your services to be financially. This should be a non-emotional process. This should be where you put prices on there and you test it out and they either buy it or they don't. And if a lot of people buy a certain thing at low prices, then you raise your prices. If hardly anybody buys at a certain price, you lower your price. That should not be an emotional process, but in the coaching industry, it is for almost everybody. And if it's an emotional process for you, here's what I can virtually guarantee you, your enoughness is in the offer. That's why it's emotional. If somebody doesn't purchase, it feels like they're not purchasing you, which means you're not valuable enough. Please let me know if this is landing for you because we're going deep and I'm telling you what the real truth is as to why we struggle, when we struggle. Now, the reason that we've got a lot of instability here and this becomes an emotional process is because we're mixing, or one of the reasons at least, is because we're mixing these two things together when they're not aligned. This second one is visibility. What visibility basically is marketing. Sales and marketing are different. Marketing is when you put your message out there, you do whatever you do on social media, you create a podcast or a YouTube channel or whatever that case is, and you get visible. Nobody can choose you if you're not visible. Nobody can order something that's not on the menu. So if you're not visible, you can't be purchased. Your business products and services cannot win without visibility. But most humans are afraid of visibility. The reason we're afraid of visibility is because all of us, I very rarely use universals, but all of us, minus a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage, were punished for visibility at some point. We were bullied because of it. We were laughed at. We were embarrassed. We lost relationships. We were punished because of visibility. So most of us actually have a resistance to visibility because visibility is how we get punished. Standing out is the way that we got bullied. Standing out is the way that somebody told us they didn't like us. Singing, literally singing a song, is the way that somebody told us we can't sing. Showing a drawing is the way that somebody told us that we can't draw. The only way that we were punished is because we were visible. So most of us at a deep level have connected visibility with danger. But I need you to understand that most of us have a resistance to visibility. And then what are we trying to do when we learn how to market? We're trying to learn how to become more visible. So most of us are trying to learn how to become more visible while we fear visibility. Is there any wonder why there's resistance? Is there any wonder why you might not want to do the Facebook Lives? Why you might not want to jump on video? Why you might not want to put your stuff out there, which is the most common phrase I hear. If you're afraid of putting yourself out there, that means you fear visibility. Here's the good news. You didn't always fear visibility. It's a learned fear. I'm going to say it's a learned adult fear, not because we learned it as adults and not necessarily because adults taught it to us, but it is an adult fear based on not looking good, based on the fear of abandonment, based on seeking approval, all of that stuff. Those are adult concepts. Those are not child, pure human concepts. Those are the morphing of the wounded mind. And then that's what we're actually learning. So we learn these wounded lessons, and then we carry them around for ever, really, unless and until we recognize that we can actually change it, and then we do the work to change it. So visibility is actually emotionally dangerous to most people. Now, it might not be intensely dangerous, so you might not literally feel tremor, although a lot of people do. Your intensity level might be different. You might just think about doing something and then decide to go clean the garage or decide to go do emails, or your sabotage might get you to take a detour. That's still resistance. It might not feel like terror, but it's still resistance. And so if you know what to do in the visibility world, but you're not doing it, then you have resistance. And you can either fight against that resistance, which means that for the rest of your business, you're going to have to constantly fight the resistance, or you can do what it takes to remove the resistance. At least the majority of it can actually be completely removed, you guys. That's the good news. Almost nobody will do it because it's not easy and sexy. But the good news is it can absolutely be almost completely removed. That's the systems work. Most of us are focusing on the symptoms work. How can I get rid of my symptoms? How can I put Band-Aids over my symptoms and pretend they're not there? Those symptoms were created by systems. If you want sustainability, you must do systems work. If you want sexy short-term success that will crash and burn, go ahead and do symptoms work. That's fine. You can overpower the symptoms with motivation for a short period of time, but you cannot create sustainability and stability without doing the systems work. And we have internal systems that we can do work on as well. So visibility and trying to get sales, marketing and sales, when they're not aligned with who you are, it's pointless anyway. Like if you don't even know who you are, which means you don't know what the puzzle piece is, then how are you even going to market that? You don't even know what it is. So what we tend to do, since we don't know our own puzzle piece, is we buy other people's versions of our puzzle piece. We ask other people, will you tell me the puzzle piece that people will buy? Because I've heard that if people buy me, that I'll feel good. And then, of course, that only works never. But we get constantly trapped by this, are you my purpose? Are you my pricing? Are you my product? Are you my this? Are you my this? Because we don't actually know who we are. So alignment is impossible if we don't know who we are. Alignment is relative. Alignment requires two things. So I can't tell you how to sell as you if we don't know who you are. That's leading to this other piece. There's one more thing on visibility. If you have a fear of visibility, I don't want you to get frustrated with yourself. I don't want you to get angry with yourself. You'll never heal visibility. Time out. Rewind. You'll never heal visibility fear with punishment or with threats or with anger or with shame or with guilt. That's not how you're going to heal that fear, because that's not how it was created. It wasn't based on that. I'm not going to dive deeper into that because that's a whole different section, and it'll take us, I won't get to all the stuff I want to get to. But visibility fear means there's a conflict inside of you. What that means is something is dying to come out of you and something else is keeping it in. There always has to be two opposing forces to create fear. You won't have any fear about something you don't care about. You only have fear if there's an opposing force trying to get out and there's something trying to keep it in. So if you have fear of visibility, it's just confirmation that there's some voice inside of you that wants to be heard. There's something inside of you that wants to be seen. There's some lesson inside of you that wants to be taught. If there wasn't, you wouldn't even have the fear. And maybe that's the biggest thing for all of you right now, or some of you right now at least, is to just recognize this is confirmation that there's something valuable inside of me that's trying to get out. Then, if that's the case, now we can look at this bottom foundational step. So this is really step one. Remember, I taught this top down. I did step 3, step 2, step 1. Step 1 is value. This is basically product development. So one of the concepts is that when you're doing the work to just become valuable inside your business, a lot of your efforts are working on yourself. A lot of your efforts are for your skill development. They're not to get clients. You can't get clients yet because you don't have a product that's valuable yet. There's not a business that's ever been started that hasn't developed the product. For some reason, we get taught in the coaching industry that you don't have to develop the product and people will just buy it if you can sell. And unfortunately, that becomes the product. The product becomes the sales skills of the person. That's why we buy so much stuff that actually doesn't pertain to us. It doesn't relate to us, or it's not aligned with us because we haven't developed an understanding of the product. This is the work that most people don't do. When you develop the product, and this could look like getting your coaching certification. It could look like practicing with clients for free for a long time. It could look like doing videos for the sake of doing videos, not to get people to pay you anything. It could look like social media posts. It could look like anything that you're putting, where you're putting stuff out, but you're doing it for the practice of developing. Like I'll tell you, I see a lot of people on social media that are following what the big people are doing. They're playing follow the leader, but they don't have value yet. So like I see a lot of people saying, you know, this is my thing and blah, 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 and DM me if you want to join the program. And I guarantee you almost nobody's succeeding with that recipe because they don't have all of these things aligned. They don't yet have a valuable product and nobody's actually bought their product yet. And so, you know, we talked a little bit about this before, that when we try to scale 0, we're left with 0. So this is true value. And I said earlier that how much we are worth is an emotional process because we actually have been programmed that we as a person are not valuable. So that's one of the reasons why it's hard to put price tags on ourselves and it's hard to make ourselves visible. And then it's hard to offer ourselves to people because we are in the offer and we don't think we're valuable. We've been programmed to think that we're not valuable. Even if this is not a really deeply emotional conversation for you, like you do have high self-esteem, we're still programmed in the opposite way of business development, of being an entrepreneur. So what I want you to understand is that you have imperfections. Those imperfections are from adversity. The adversity has taught you lessons. Those 3 things create value for people. What they don't have is the lessons yet. They have the same imperfections. They have the same adversity. They need you to teach them the lessons. That's the piece they're missing. And that's where your value actually is, especially in the transformational world. Your value is not in your perfection. Your value is not in your accomplishments. Your value is in the piece that they are missing, which is your lessons. And I've never heard anybody afraid of teaching their lessons. They're afraid of visibility. They're afraid of sales. They're afraid of all this other stuff. I've never seen anybody go, you know what? I'm afraid to tell people what I've learned in my life. But you got to understand that's actually where your value comes from. So the final piece here is when you've got these aligned, and these feed on top of each other. And these are not just a linear thing, like you'll never have to go back here. Sometimes this becomes a cycle and you got to go back and revisit. But When these are aligned and you do this in the right order, by the way, these things become way faster when they're built properly on top of this. It's like this is the cake. This is the icing. But when all of these are in order and they're aligned, what you have is viability. Viability means something can work, means something can live. Most businesses never get to viability. And if you don't have a viable business, there is no marketing plan that will overcompensate for that. There is no pricing structure that will overcompensate for that. There is no motivation strategy that will overcompensate for that because the business product is not viable.
Now, if you like this video, check out that video right there where I'm going to break down the science of becoming more confident and certain as a coach.
So when it comes to getting certainty as a coach, this phrase right here is what it boils down to that causes us to fear saying it.